Hello, welcome again to Tim Scott Uncancelled with me, Tim Scott. It's great to have you with us today, whoever you are, wherever you are, and however you're joining us for another episode here on Unprecedented TV with Lembit Opik and on my show, Tim Scott Uncancelled. This is the show where we go behind the news, we go behind the front pages, and the kind of stories that they don't always want you to hear about. So today we're concentrating on Reform UK. That will not be the same every episode. We're not going to just become a party political broadcast every time for one particular party. But today we're looking at Reform UK. We'll have other diverse voices as well. And as ever, we have a guest, and I'll introduce the guest in a minute. Our guest today is Alan Cook from Reform UK, from Bexley, on the southeast London Kent border. I know he has a few things to say about that, and he has the distinction of being Reform UK's first elected councillor for Greater London. We're also going behind the news where we've got a really interesting opinion poll showing Reform with a really good lead and the Uni Party, Labour and the Conservatives in serious trouble. We're going to be looking at how some people reckon that the BBC needs to be protected from Nigel Farage. We're going to be looking at train fares going up again whilst the service declines and Labour threatens to nationalise them all. We're going to be looking at migrant housing. That's a story that's going to run and run. We're going to be looking at facial recognition software. Do you trust the authorities with this kind of information? I hope I don't get nicked for some poor bloke who has the misfortune to look like me. And last but not least, we will be looking at what is claimed to be the decline of the great British pudding. But enough from me, and it's now time to bring in our guest, Councillor Alan Cook from the Reform Party, just joining us now. Good morning, Alan, and thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Tim. It's a pleasure to be here. And I need to correct you straight off. I'm a councillor for the London Borough of Bromley. Bexley is actually next door. Okay,
but is that in Greater London?
It is, yes. Sorry, you said I was in Bexley, but actually it's Bromley.
My apologies, Bromley. I'm getting my Bromleys and my Bexleys mixed up. Okay, Bromley, of course.
Bromley.
Now, I mentioned at the top of the show that you've got a particular view about the great borough of Bromley and whether it should be in London or whether it should be in Kent. Just tell us about that.
Well, I've got a lot of views about Bromley, but one that I raised during the campaigning period was the fact that, Bromley has only brought in to the GLA recently, in the last 63, I think was the year. And before that, obviously, we were part of Kent. And now that we actually have a mayor who's quite active and unfortunately not active in a good way, and a lot of people in these suburbs are feeling the pinch of this guy a little bit more than they ought to, because what I've said basically is that the policies that may actually work and may be a good fit for inner London, for high density living, for high density traffic, will not necessarily be a good fit for the suburbs where, Biggin Hill, you could take a picture and you won't see a house or a car in that picture. It's just rolling fields. And obviously this hated ULEZ tax has been applied to Biggin Hill when it has absolutely no purpose of being there at all. And, ignoring all the lies and the incorrect figures and these crazy 4,000 people dying a year, we'd have bodies all over the street if that was true. And so, I've raised this as a talking point and saying I'm going to start the conversation of potentially pulling the borough of Bromley out of the GLA and have it stand as a proper unitary borough by itself, or indeed maybe bring Bexley and Havering on board as well. So we'll be a bigger unit and we'll be able to control ourselves. Obviously, there'll be a slight change here and there. People are concerned about their freedom passes, but obviously we can just buy the services from the GLA that we require and not actually pay for everything that we don't need, and be, of the overreach of the mayor's office reaching down to the leafy suburbs of Bromley.
Yes, so you wouldn't have to come under Sadiq Khan anymore. I wonder what he might have to say about that.
Well, he may not be around in that position for much longer. So
let's hope so.
There is something happening in September, which I'm hoping might be enough of a shift to actually unseat the guy. So I can't say much more than that at the moment.
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Oh, that would be an amazing day.
Yes. Oh, happy day. So you're on the you're on the southeast London Kent border. I mean, how far are you from Kent? And is you're probably outside the London postal district, Alan, aren't you? Do you consider that you have a Kent postal address, for example?
Well, the address of my house it's Bickley, Kent.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, or Bickley, Bromley, Kent. So it is, still part of Kent. It's just this arbitrary line has been drawn around it, so it's included in the GLA.
Yes, but, I remember my first house was in West London in Northolt, and I think it was in the borough of Ealing, and it was just outside the London postal districts, but it had a Middlesex postal address. So you have got, and then my parents came from Gants Hill, which again is part of London, but they always thought it was Essex. So you have got this issue, haven't you? And the boat race, the Middlesex side and the Surrey side. Yeah. So there is this sort of county thing, isn't there, that you're referring to?
Yeah, I think how people feel and the history of postcodes, I think is pretty much not the question. It's the fact that we're having these things forcibly put onto our council, our council tax bill. I looked at my council tax bill and it's nearly £900 went to the GLA, and that's a lot of money for trans ideology pride marches that I don't want to be paying for.
Well, all these people, they're on six-figure salaries, Alan. They've and they're gold-plated pensions. They've got to be funded somehow, haven't they?
Oh, Khan's personnel. It's just unbelievable the millions that he's actually added to their list of employees, and obviously with their gold-plated pensions as well. He's got a number of deputy mayors. Every position is duplicated. Yes. It's such a waste of money. And what we have a history of now of 100 days into running a lot of 12 councils, we have a history of saving money. So I think London is probably, the GLA is probably the biggest wasters of taxpayers' cash. So hopefully we will win the mayoral position next year. And sorry, not next year, but next time the actual mayor election comes up, and get in and actually have a proper look at these books and basically probably take the axe to a lot of these positions, which are completely unnecessary. You'd be less concerned if the guy was doing a good job, but he seems to be doing damage all the way. He's wasting our money and making the situation worse.
They need a Doge unit, Alan. We need to.
Everyone needs a Doge unit. Yeah.
I mean, Reform are doing a good job in Kent. I mean, they're finding out that it's costing 40,000 a year for a taxi to take one special needs child to school every day. This kind of thing. Yeah. Well, pay me 30 and I'll take it to school every morning.
I know. And with technology now. We had this something I raised with the Assange case that America wanted to extradite him. And they're saying, well, why not just have an online court case? And, in Australia, a lot of kids are actually schooled online and the technology is there now. Okay, you'll miss the socializing, but maybe just go in once a week for socializing and you probably get a better level of education that way anyway. Have we had people look at these problems with a fresh mind, as opposed to the old stale way? And a lot of these sort of councillors have been there 40 years and they've got relationships with suppliers, and it's worth people, coming and looking at these afresh and new, and shaking the apple cart a little bit.
Well, quite right too. Now, Alan, you were elected, before we get on to our news stories, you were elected in a by-election. Just tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's sad to start with. There's a gentleman called Jonathan Laidlaw who unfortunately passed away, which created the need for a by-election.
Yeah.
And he was a great advocate for reform. He was an independent, but he started coming to all of our meetings. And unfortunately, the week I was due to sit down and have a coffee with him, he actually passed away. So we had a by-election. It's in a very sort of strong Tory area. There's 3 councillors in that ward, and Jonathan actually started off as a Tory councillor, so he did, the Tories won the 3 seats in that ward last time round, and so they were very much expecting to win this. They threw everything at it. The amount of times I saw the leader of Bromley Council out, who's a Tory, leafleting and canvassing, so every time I went out I bumped into him. So everyone was out there doing their work, doing their bidding. And even on the polling day, we had Kemi pop down and just to ensure the win, shall we say? But that seemed to backfire a little bit, and they still lost. So if we can win in Bromley, in what is really seen as a safe Tory seat, with a lot of people on the doorstep, because we did a lot of door knocking, and we were getting an awful lot of people on the doorstep apologising to me, the candidate for reform, for voting Tory. And they said, you've got our vote at national level, that's secure, don't worry about that. You've got our vote there. But actually at local level, we're still going to vote Tory. And so I was not going into the count with any sort of sense of a 100% win here, because of the history and what the Tories did there, and so many people saying that they're voting reform at the next general election. But I was quite surprised. It was a bit of a landslide, over 10% victory. So very happy. The count itself, you've got a room full of Tory councillors, and all very jovial and friendly at the beginning. And the last 15 minutes, not a single one of them would look me in the eye. So so that was worth it, actually. All of the pounding of the streets was worth those last 15 minutes.
Well, they loved you until you won, Alan.
Absolutely, yeah. You're a good friend until the moment you beat them.
Oh dear. Yes,
what this has done, I've knocked over the first Tory domino. Basically, what it means that there's nowhere which is Tory control that we can't win now. So they are concerned, and they need to be concerned.
No Christmas card for you, Alan.
I'll get a few. Not from the old school uni party, I'm afraid.
No, not now. Okay, so talking of how Reform are doing, there's a very, very interesting opinion poll out recently. Now, apologies for the rather wonky slide there. Now, this opinion poll, I mean, it really is interesting, because this is something like the 85th poll in a row that's got Reform leading. But I thought this one was, and to be fair, it is a little bit of an outlier. Or could it be more described as a harbinger of doom for the Uni Party, the Conservatives and Labour? Because we've got Reform on 33%. It's not the first poll to have them quite that high. But what's really interesting, Alan, is if you look at Labour and the Conservatives, I mean, they are both starting with a 1. They're below 20%. They can't even start with a 2. I mean, the only question on my mind looking at this poll is who on earth are the 18% who are still voting Labour, Alan?
Well, no, every party will have its hardcore. Wherever bad they do, they're always going to vote that way. And that's understandable. A lot of people aren't actually interested in politics, so they'll always have their hardcore vote. More surprising for me is when you say uniparty, actually, I include the Libs and the Greens. And I refer to the Greens as red Greens because if you look at their policies, they're practically communists. And, 10% of people would vote Green, which is absolutely surprising. I guess they haven't actually looked at their policies because it is frightening. It's just total wealth redistribution. If you think it's bad at the moment with the tax, if the Greens ever got anywhere near power, you'd be wanting to leave the country all over again. But no, it's more, individual polls don't really tell us that much. But yeah, if you look at the trend, we are trending to over 30%, which is good. And we're getting very close to being, more than the Labour and the Conservatives put together. And, that's a really good omen. And it's looking like it's ours to lose at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is. Yes. And apologies again for the team putting up that slightly skew-whiff slide, but I think people can see it, and I think it is worth commenting on. Alan, have you got a view on this Jeremy Corbyn party? I mean, Zara Sultana and Jeremy Corbyn. I mean, some people have rather unkindly called it the fruit and nut party, but I mean, what have you got a view? I mean, how do you think they might do?
I don't mind people having a bit of fun with names. We want to move away from this political correctness. I always say that I'm correct politically, but not always politically correct. And
good.
Have a bit of fun. Let's take the mickey out of each other. But, deep down, it's a bloody serious job. And even more serious now because the damage which is being done to this country. I think they're going to help us. They will obviously strip more support out of Labour. And what it will do, it's not going to be the floating voters they strip out, the people who decide on the day which party they're going to vote for. It's going to be the hardcore far left. And so they are going to be the ones which will always vote Labour. It doesn't matter how badly they perform. So actually, it may be the death knell of the Labour Party, started by Blair, seconded by Brown, and now it seems we have Starmer finishing them off.
Yes, very interesting. I had felt before the election, for example, that Jeremy Corbyn in Islington North, I thought there was a reasonable chance that he ran as an independent, of course, but in Parliament he links himself with the Gaza independents, the 4 Gaza independents. In fact, Richard Tice has commented on because Reform are in the row in front of them. He said it's a bit uncomfortable in Parliament. I don't know, maybe the favour's returned. He said it's a bit uncomfortable in Parliament having Jeremy Corbyn and the Gaza independents sort of so close to you, as it were. But I thought there was a reasonable chance that Jeremy Corbyn would hold his seat as an independent of Islington North, and that he, with a split vote, with Labour putting up a candidate as well. And that did IDS a favour as well in his seat, Ian Duncan Smith, because the Labour candidate who was ditched she ran as an independent and split the vote, and IDS got back in, which I was great to see. But I mean, were you surprised when Corbyn was re-elected?
Not really. We do have a problem with secular politics now, and actually, it's good that it's obvious and we can see it. There's no actual real place for Gaza independence in English Parliament. And this sort of highlights the uniparty and why I say that it's the 4 parties, the uniparty, because all 4 of them are global socialists. And that's why Reform stands out. It's because we actually are UK-centric. We're the only party that is saying we'll put this country first and we'll put the electorate first. All the others are not. And, obviously the Gaza independents aren't, and Jeremy Corbyn won't. He's very much a no borders, no country, no nations. He's a very dangerous man in politics, but he is. He's not like Starmer. He doesn't flip-flop. He doesn't change. And some people have compared Nigel Farage to Corbyn because not of their politics obviously, but the fact that Nigel doesn't change. He says things 15 years ago which become true, and he's attacked for saying it. But then 12 years, 15 years later, it happens. So Corbyn is like that. You know what you get. With Starmer, you haven't got a clue, and it doesn't really matter because he may change his mind 10 minutes down the line. So
yes, Alan, I agree broadly. I mean, I think part of the appeal of Corbyn, and he does have a following, and I think at the 2017 election, I thought he had a reasonably good campaign. He appeared to adoring crowds, chanting his name, which I always sort of, I always found a bit creepy.
I'm more a fan of his brother, actually, who's a scientist. But we need opposing forces in British politics. So I don't agree with his politics, but I very much agree with him having a stand to air them. So it's what we have at the moment is a problem with the far left being, this program is called Uncancelled, and we have the hate and the racist mobs, the hope not hate and the stand up against racism. They are pretty much the fascists of society of today, and they're running around looking for fascists, not realizing they are the fascists. So yeah, and they are angry, and they tend to be mask wearing, and they can be very violent. So we are, because we're the centralist party, we are actually under threat, shall we say. We've had meetings having to be cancelled because of mobs of fascists, far left, and racists turn up to actually stop the meetings. And that is not what should be happening in one of the oldest liberal democracies in the world.
No, I completely agree, and I see this with some of the work that I do for the Freedom Association. That you've got stuff going on that really shouldn't be. This is why we call the show Tim Scott Uncancelled. People are being pinged for things that they shouldn't. I think free speech is does it feel like free speech is just under a lot more pressure, Alan?
Well, the online safety bill, Nigel's been attacked for telling people how ridiculous and stupid and how much of an attack on freedom of speech it is, and they compare him to Savile. That is just such a poor thing to say, and it just shows that these people don't actually have a great mind. I was talking about this yesterday, and on my computer at home, most people have antivirus software. Mine's called Norton. And basically, there's a button on it which says VPN, Virtual Private Network. Click that button, and it asks you, which country do you want to be in today?
Yeah.
So click Argentina, Brazil, Japan, anything. And as far as the computer and the tens of millions of pounds that has now been wasted on this, thanks to the government, everything is bypassed. It takes seconds, and everything is pointless. And but the government think this is wonderful, and they're saving children. It's ridiculous. But if it's that easy for people to actually just see the folly in this government, I still think that Labour vote is ridiculously high.
Yes, I mean, the online safety bill, this was a legacy from the Conservatives, like some of the other stuff that, the football regulator, my goodness, that's going to make VAR look like a good idea. That's another legacy issue. But I've got a VPN as well, Alan, which I've used actually, for several years now. And I recently had a sort of rather amusing incident where it showed me some options of where could I be listed. So I think I was listed as Glasgow, but it came up with, would you like to be listed in America? And I said, okay, well, I clicked and I said, well, what are the possibilities? And I noticed I could be listed as being in Gotham City. So I clicked on the Gotham City button. But then the next time I tried to book something, all the prices came up in dollars. So I think you have to stay in the UK. But look,
not necessarily. It takes seconds to transport yourself to another country. So as long as you remember, it's when you want to buy something,
as long as you remember, where you are. Well, look, okay. I mean, we've had a good discussion there about reform and about the opinion polls. But staying with that reform theme, let's go on to our next story. This one is, this is from The Guardian. So, we're looking behind the news at some of the stories here that, people don't normally see, or that certainly, are not always on the front page. So if this story here, the BBC apparently needs to be protected from Nigel Farage. The BBC must be given complete political independence in case Nigel Farage enters government, a former director of news at the BBC has said. James Harding, editor-in-chief of The Observer, pointed to Donald Trump's, here we go, moves to publicly defund some US media, said it would be recklessly complacent to believe that something similar could not happen in Britain. He said the BBC's survival was at stake, but a shroud waving there, and noted that Reform's most recent manifesto had said that the out of touch, wasteful BBC, well, I can certainly agree with that, is institutionally biased, and the license fee is taxation without representation. I mean, just on before we come to talk about the headline there, I mean, what views have you got, Alan, on the BBC license fee?
Yeah, I think it should be phased out. A lot of people just think it should go overnight. However, there's a lot of people with jobs and families and houses that they're reliant on their salary. And it's not their fault that the BBC is very overtly biased and very anti-British. And every time England, gets anywhere near potentially breaking an international law, they put this country down as a pariah. And actually, all the countries in the world break international law all the time, and their national broadcasters don't sell their country down the river. So, I'm not a fan of the BBC. It's very clearly biased, and I think this is hilarious. They don't see what's in front of them. They don't see that the problem is not Farage. The problem is them. And so they're not learning. They never will learn. So what I think they should do is, take 20% off every year until we're down to paying practically nothing. And anyway, the BBC should be self-funding. If we still want a terrestrial TV channel or channels, Freeview, then that's what it should be paid for. So however much it costs to have these big aerials, like Crystal Palace is the local one down near me, to have these big aerials transmitting terrestrial TV, there's a cost to that, and a lot of channels use it. So either they all pay the going rate, or us as receivers of that actually pay just a small amount to cover the cost of transmission. And but a fair exit, I think, not cut it off straight away. But they've proven year after year after year that they can't be trusted, that the bias is still there. It's a huge organisation. To remove the political bias from something that large is going to be difficult, but obviously it's the job we're going to have to do with the civil service and the education establishment. So it's something that will have to be repeated over and over again. The BBC don't want to, repair themselves. So unfortunately, they will disappear at some point, but at least their funding will.
Yeah, I mean, just to round off on that story, I think really what Nigel's talking about here is having a differently funded BBC, and I think that the 1950s license fee is completely out of touch. We're living in a different age now. I mean, people less and less are watching traditional linear television, particularly if you're under the age of about 40, you're probably not at all. And I think moving to a subscription model actually might even be in the BBC's interests. And, if you don't, no subscription, no BBC, that's very difficult for the BBC to monitor and enforce the license fee, of course. Well, look, let's move on. In fact, we've got another story that maybe we can introduce later, which is this poor woman who was knocked into the canal by a guy on an illegal e-scooter. But the next story then, Alan, is to do with train fares. It's so unfair. Train tickets to rise by nearly 6% as services get worse. I mean, here in Buckinghamshire, we've got Chiltern Rail running into Marylebone, and actually it's not a bad service. It's certainly better than the old British rail service with the old slam doors and stuff. I mean, what's your rail provider like down in Bromley?
It's not too bad, actually. I spend a lot of time in Westminster, a lot of time in Bromley, so I'm bouncing up and down all the time. Fast train from Bromley to Victoria, 16, 18 minutes. And
well, that's good. That's good.
That's fantastic. And if you miss one, there's one in 10 minutes time. So really lucky he's got a good service. And if it's late by 20%, what's that? 3 and a bit minutes. So yeah, no, not a problem there. The annoying thing is when you have a train replacement for big scale track replacement and those sort of things, and it actually makes you appreciate a train service. It doesn't matter how bad the train service is, it's always going to be better than a bus.
Well, yes, I mean, if there's 3 words in the English language that makes the heart sink, it's bus replacement service. And because and of course it has to stop at every single station. Yeah. But it goes on to mention here about Labour nationalising. It says here Labour is nationalising operators as contracts expire with South Western Railways and C2C now already under, well, they call it public ownership. To me, that's a publicly listed company where you can buy the shares. I call it state ownership. And really, I've got very little confidence that the service will get any better. And I think we should remember that it's just the trains that were privatized, and the passenger numbers did actually double after the train service was nationalized. But Network Rail have retained control of the network and the stations and everything. So when I know people are a bit fed up with the service, but when you hear that you've got leaves on the track, points failure, engineering works have overrun, this is a failure of nationalised nationalised Network Rail. It's not a failure of the privatised train operating companies, and it's always very easy to. So there's a very interesting example there on the screen. I mean, have you got any confidence that your service will get any better if it's nationalised? No, the Labour Party couldn't run a bath, so it's going to get worse if it's nationalised. So, but the damage which is done by the Labour Party, it should be called Reform 180 actually, because we're going to reverse so much of the damage that the Labour Party is inflicting on the country. But given we don't have any control at the moment, so let's see how well they do. I don't have any great confidence in them. But the pricing structure, the RPI, and putting a percentage on top is mean, because if everything in your life is getting more expensive, automatically your train ticket will become more expensive plus a little bit as well. So actually, in reality, shouldn't it be the other way around? If you've got less money, if everything in your life is costing you more, don't put up the trains. It's look at it in that way, and it's quite mean. It's evil. Well, I mean, even with working from home, you still need many people. More companies are saying, we want you in the office more. I mean, I've noticed from here that post-COVID, the trains they're less frequent. It's still a good service, I have to say. Chiltern running into Marylebone. No confidence it'll get any better. It certainly was worse when it was under British Rail previously. But I've noticed the station car park's not as full as it used to be, and that the trains are less frequent and they stop at more stations. So that's an interesting one. People will still need to get into London for all sorts of reasons. There seems
to be a bit of a backlash at the moment from the woking at home, as it's referred to now. So more people are actually going back to the office and being more productive. Yeah,
more companies now are saying, we want you in 3 days a week, that kind of thing. More sort of flexible working. Well, look, I don't. Thanks.
Train drivers who want to work less.
Well, very well paid for a 4-day week. From what typical Labour, they gave away these.
How long until they asked to work from home as well?
Well, That's an interesting. Perhaps they can drive it automatically, Alan, from online. You know, be a bit like the DLR. You know, there's no actual the Docklands Light Railway down here in London. It's you know, there's no actual driver. Well, look, I don't know if we've got that story of the poor woman who was knocked into the canal by the guy riding an illegal scooter. Otherwise, let's go on to the. Yeah, here it is. Here it is. Now, this was on the dreaded BBC lunchtime news yesterday, and apologies for the rather ropey photo there. In fact, this was only caught by accident by somebody who was by just a member of the public on their phone. Now, what you can see here is you've got the canal on the left. You've got the canal boats stacked two in twos in the middle, and then on the right you've got the towpath, and you can see there the woman with the white coat and the guy, and I'm assuming it was a guy, maybe that's unfair to blokes generally, but he's there on the right. This was on the BBC lunchtime news yesterday. So this was the towpath, and he was driving one of these electronic scooters, one of these powered scooters, which unlike an electric bike, so there's different rules, but unlike an electric bike, as I understand it, if you've got one of these powered scooters, if you're hiring it, you can go on the road. I believe, maybe you can correct me, Alan, but you can't go on a pavement or on a towpath or a footpath as here. And if you own it, you can only use it on private land. Is that your understanding, Alan?
It is pretty much. There's schemes which are licensed, and those scooters are numbered, so they're identifiable, and you can use them on the road, but they're very limited speed-wise. So the personal e-scooters, which are unrestricted, they're not allowed on the road. They're not allowed on the pavement. And I know the police like to get the easy, low-hanging fruit when it comes to getting crime, i.e. let's just police social media for hurty words. Yeah. Well, here's a really easy one for them. Yeah. Just basically confiscate all of the e-bikes and e-scooters. The electric-assisted pedal bikes are actually legal. Yes. But the ones which have a throttle are not. Yeah. And if you see your Uber Eats and your Deliveroo, they have great big mittens on the handlebar. Yes. Even in the summer, in the heat, they have these great big mittens, and that's basically to hide the fact that it's throttle operated, so you can't see that. Yeah. But you know, this is such an easy thing for the police to actually tackle because it's happening day and night in the street. They're on the pavement, they're on the roads, they're highly dangerous. And it's only a matter of time before people are killed. And it's going to be children and dogs and the elderly are going to be killed. You know, these things can do 40 plus miles an hour. Yeah, they can. I've put them in my road. And it's something I'm actually going to be talking to the local police about in my role as a councillor. I've seen one of these e-bikes go down Chatterton Road in Bromley, probably over 40 miles an hour. It's, the acceleration of things is incredible.
Now, in this case,
I've seen in town them used for drug distribution as well, so that people on your phone, you request your drugs of choice, and then an e-bike or an e-scooter turns up, the transaction is done, and then they're off. So it's very quick and they're very mobile. And it's something the police should be concentrating on and not policing social media.
Now, in this case, Alan, the scooter was being. We must move on. We're going to have a quick trailer after this story. So just to finish off on this story, this was an illegally ridden scooter on the towpath or the footpath by the canal. The guy was bombing along. The poor woman was hit and knocked into the canal. Yeah. So she went right under. She was not flying. And guess what? The guy on the scooter, it didn't stop. He just bombed on, left her floundering in the canal. She was helped out of the canal by some good-hearted passers-by, and she referred this to the police. And as you say there, Alan, the police were just not. I mean, she could have drowned. Yeah.
This is something because unless you've got good CCTV, it's going to be very difficult to actually get the guy.
It
is where they need to be proactive, and actually, it's such an easy thing to do. Go and stop them, get them now, confiscate these bikes and these scooters.
Yeah, well, we must move on. I mean, a rather disturbing story there. Okay, we've got 2 stories left, but before that, there's a quick trailer about what else is coming up here on unprecedented.tv. Okay, good stuff. Welcome back to Tim Scott Uncancelled with our guest Alan Cook. Okay, so we've got about 10 minutes left. So some quick stories. We've got a very quick one. I think. I mean, this issue is going to run and run. Home Office in race to find alternative asylum housing. Have you got any of these hotels down your way, Alan?
No, we haven't, luckily. And but there is a protest today outside an apartment complex, which is being used to fill, asylum seekers. There will be, I don't know, hopefully it'll be a peaceful protest. I might pop down to just to have an overview to see what's going on down there. I haven't been to one before, but it's in my patch, so I will go and have a look.
Yeah, I think there's a legitimate interest there, and I really do.
Well, I don't know the story behind it 100%, but I think there may have been an attack on a lady or a girl there. So that's what started the people's concerns, shall we say. So it's a usual, it's a community that gets hurt by these undocumented people being shoved in the middle of a community. And, they are from cultures that are potentially vastly different from ours and have a different view on the fairer sex.
Yeah, as they used to say, it's called community punishment because it's the community that gets punished. I mean, my sort of final word on this is I think the being able to challenge the hotels. I mean, it looks like a win, but actually, the people from the hotels. I mean, 140 were told at the Bell Hotel in Epping. They're going to have to be dispersed and put into homes of multiple occupancy. So, I think that detain and deport really is.
We all know that. We all know that once they're here, it's very difficult to get rid of them. So, stop the boats. And that is key. Not smash the gangs. That's ridiculous. Stop the boats. And we can stop the boats. We legally, under international law, we can. And there's half a dozen laws that actually give us the right to just drop them back in France. So, unfortunately, the Uni Party is not willing to do that. We are the only party that's willing to do it. So until we're in power, unfortunately, we're going to have this, I believe. But let's make it hard for the government for them to maintain this policy of letting them in. So if the hotels are all found to be, illegally used for this purpose, then the government's got a hell of a problem, and it needs to start thinking maybe offshore them. And these things won't happen unless we force them to happen.
I think detain and deport, Alan, and I think smash the gangs. We'll need to move on, but smash the gangs. The only thing being smashed at the minute are the numbers of people.
The records.
The records of people arriving. Okay, last two stories very quickly.
Right.
So this one and the next story coming up. This is from the Mail. Met's facial recognition cameras unlawful, says rights watchdog. Yeah, I mean, do you how are you feeling about facial recognition?
Well, this is about the Notting Hill Carnival, isn't it? And the police are going to set up facial recognition vans on the outskirts, not actually at the carnival itself. So catching people coming and going who are dangerous and wanted. So actually, I don't have a problem with it. But these rights organisations are actually saying that the cameras are racist because they have trouble picking out darker faces correctly. But I think it's the National Physical Laboratory has done tests on this, and they said, well, the thresholds that the police use for these cameras actually are accurate and balanced. So it comes down to, do you trust the police to actually use these settings or not? And if they do, then the system is fine. And it's the police using technology instead of actually policing properly. And but with their numbers in decline, then they probably do need to use a bit more technology. But I think these sort of groups that are complaining about this should actually invest a bit more time in trying to make a carnival that is unpoliceable. And that is Mark Rowley's words when he was interviewed, saying that why is this event even still happening? 60 police officers a year on average get assaulted, get injured at this event. People are stabbed, people are killed, and yet they're complaining that a facial recognition system may get it wrong for a small percentage of the time. What they should be doing is looking at the cultural issues, which is turning this event into a massive crime event.
Yeah. Okay. And just on a more general point, I mean, I really am a bit concerned about this. I don't particularly trust the authorities with, frankly, with this sort of information. Okay. So
before you move on,
if
this was a Women's Institute 3-day event in Notting Hill, then I don't think there would be any reason to have a facial recognition system set up there. But with the history of this event and the harm and crime that goes on there, then I think it's a proportionate use of the technology.
Yeah, interesting that it should be deployed in particular circumstances. Exactly. I mean, my concern is
everywhere.
It's the thin end of the wedge, Alan, and they'll be using it there's fewer police. They'll see this as a sort of force multiplier.
Yeah.
So I mean, it says here, the use of live facial recognition technology by Britain's biggest police force is, in inverted commas, unlawful and not compatible with human rights laws, the Equalities Watchdog has said. Scotland Yard's rules and safeguards fall short of standards that could have a chilling effect on individuals' rights when deployed at protests. Says the Equality and Human Rights Commission. Okay, our final story, a slightly humorous one, I think. The decline of the Great British Pudding. Maybe we have that story coming up in a minute. This is the crumbles off. When you were growing up, Alan, in your home, did you get any of these puddings?
Absolutely. My mum was a good cook, and she'd often make a crumble. And actually, people should. It's an easy thing to make. What is it? 4 ingredients. So flour, butter, fruit, and sugar, and that's it. So it's not difficult, and people should. And I think the English puds are the best puds in the world. The old suet puddings, jam roly-poly with some proper homemade custard. Yes, my favourite. Good stodgy, hearty puddings. Yeah. And there's a pub in Down, actually, which is in the borough of Bromley, and called the George in Down Village. And I used to go there because they did cracking puddings. And I used to go there, have a pint, and I'd order a pint and a pudding. And then I'd order another pint and have another pudding. I didn't bother to have dinner. Very good. I'd ordering puddings. So.
Very good. So there was it was in the papers recently, the decline of the great British pudding. Apple crumble, as you quite rightly say, Alan, it's simple. It's one of the few things that I can actually make. And like you, I remember my mum, she used to do suet pudding and then put golden syrup on the pudding. And she used to do a chocolate floating pudding. But yeah, good. Okay, good stuff. Well, Alan, thank you very much for being our guest today. I think it's been a great show. We've covered a number of good issues, and well done on your election down in Bromley. And so, Alan, thank you. Thank you to the gallery and the team for running the show. So this is another episode of Tim Scott Uncancelled. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching, and we'll hope to see you next time. Thank you, folks.